Coruscant had never felt heavier to Anakin Skywalker. The weight of his prophetic dreams, the chilling visions of Padme dying in childbirth, pressed down on him, suffocating him with a fear he couldn't banish. He was caught between his unwavering devotion to the Jedi Order and a burgeoning desperation to save the woman he loved. Chancellor Palpatine, seemingly his only confidant, had subtly fanned these flames, whispering promises of power over life and death. Today, the whispers turned to a roaring fire. Summoned to Palpatine's private office, Anakin found the Chancellor bathed in the eerie glow of the cityscape, his usual affable demeanor replaced by a predatory gleam in his eyes. "The Jedi are holding you back, my boy," Palpatine purred, his voice now laced with an unsettling sibilance. "They cannot offer you the power to save her. Only the DarkSide can." Anakin's heart hammered against his ribs. The words hung in the air, heavy with temptation, resonating with his deepest anxieties. He saw the path laid out before him: limitless power, the ability to defy death itself. The dark side pulsed, a seductive hum against his very soul, promising salvation. But then, a different image flashed in his mind. Padme's kind eyes, her gentle smile, the unwavering belief she held in him, the good man he tried so hard to be. He remembered Obi-Wan's patience, Yoda's wisdom, the core tenets of the Jedi Code that, despite his frustrations, had always guided him towards justice and peace. He remembered the innocent lives he had sworn to protect, the very children in the temple. The darkness recoiled slightly as a sliver of light pierced through. Palpatine, seeing the momentary hesitation, pressed harder, his face contorting into a sneer that confirmed his true, monstrous nature. "Join me, Lord Vader, and together we shall reshape the galaxy." The name, Lord Vader, hit Anakin like a physical blow. It solidified the horror of the path Palpatine was offering. This wasn't salvation, it was corruption. In that instant, the choice was clear. This being before him was not a kindly mentor, but a parasite, feeding on his fear. "You are not my friend," Anakin snarled, his voice low, raw with betrayal and sudden, cold fury. Before Palpatine could react, Anakin ignited his lightsaber. The blue blades snapped to life, illuminating the Chancellor's true, ancient malevolence. Palpatine shrieked, force lightning erupting from his fingertips, but Anakin, fueled by a desperate righteous anger, moved with a speed born of crisis. He deflected the bolts, pushing through the searing energy, his mind singularly focused. This wasn't about power now, it was about stopping a great evil. The duel was swift, brutal, and utterly devoid of the calculated precision Anakin usually employed. It was a desperate struggle, a clash of raw force against raw force. Palpatine, caught off guard by Anakin's sudden, uncharacteristic aggression, fought back with a viciousness that belied his frail appearance. Just as Palpatine was about to unleash a devastating torrent of lightning, Anakin, with a guttural roar, plunged his lightsaber through the Chancellor's chest. At that very moment, the doors burst open. Mace Windu, Kit Fisto, Ajan Kohler, and CZ Tien stood frozen, their lightsabers ignited, their faces registering a mixture of shock and horror. Palpatine gasped, his eyes...
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.
And horror. Palpatine gasped, his eyes wide with a dying, hate-filled surprise, before his body slumped, lifeless. Anakin stood panting, his lightsaber still ignited, smoke curling from the Chancellor's robes. He looked up at the bewildered Jedi Masters, his eyes wide, a flicker of something akin to terror mingling with a grim resolve. He was the Sith Lord, Anakin choked out, his voice hoarse. Darth Sidious. He corrupted the Republic from within. The revelation sent shockwaves through the Jedi Order and the Galactic Republic. Mace Windu, ever the pragmatist, immediately secured the scene, verifying Palpatine's identity and the undeniable evidence of his DarkSide power. Anakin, though hailed by some as a hero for striking down the hidden enemy, was also regarded with immense caution by the Council. His raw display of power, his unorthodox method of confronting and executing the Sith Lord, unsettled them. Yoda sensed the profound darkness Anakin wrestled with, and the thin line he had walked. A power vacuum ensued. The Senate was plunged into chaos, but without Palpatine's insidious manipulation, figures like Senator Bail Organa and Mon Mothma quickly stepped forward, rallying moderate voices to prevent total anarchy. They established an interim leadership, working tirelessly to expose the vast network of corruption Palpatine had woven. Anakin bore a heavy burden. He had saved the galaxy, but at what cost to himself? He was haunted by Palpatine's dying gaze, by the raw power he had unleashed. The Council, while grateful, kept a watchful eye, assigning Obi-Wan to work closely with him, not just as a mentor, but as a stabilizing presence. Anakin, humbled, accepted it. He began to understand the true meaning of control, not just over the Force, but over himself. The Clone Wars, however, did not immediately end. The Separatist movement, leaderless but still vast and decentralized, continued its fight, fueled by years of resentment and the momentum of war. The Jedi, now stripped of their unwitting puppet master, had to fight a war without a hidden agenda, seeking true peace rather than a manufactured victory. They became more adaptable, less rigid, guided by the living Force, and their growing understanding of the subtle ways of the dark side finally revealed. The Jedi Order itself began a slow, painful reformation. The old ways, the strict adherence to dogma, were questioned. Yoda, observing Anakin's near fall and his ultimate redemption, emphasized compassion and connection over cold detachment. He taught that true power lay not in suppressing emotions, but in understanding and mastering them, channeling them for good. Padme, relieved and terrified by Anakin's near descent, became his anchor. Their secret marriage remained so, but their bond deepened, rooted in mutual trust and a shared vision for a better republic. She worked tirelessly in the Senate, guiding the fractured government towards healing, while Anakin fought on the front lines, a living testament to the dangers of unchecked power and the strength of a moral choice. Eventually, the Separatist forces, without Count Dooku or Palpatine's overarching strategy, fractured and were brought to peace through a combination of diplomatic efforts and decisive, targeted military actions. The war ended not with an empire's iron fist, but with a renewed, more transparent galactic republic. Anakin, now a master, walked a path of vigilant self-awareness, his immense power tempered by the wisdom of his near fall. The Jedi Order, reformed and humble, stood ready to serve a galaxy that, though scarred by years of conflict, looked forward with a new, fragile hope, guided by a force now truly in balance.
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.
The chill of the Coruscant night often brought little comfort to Anakin Skywalker. Instead, it brought the nightmares. They were vivid, terrifying flashes. Padme, his beloved Padme, screaming in silent agony, writhing on a birthing bed, her life force dimming, then extinguishing entirely. He would wake with a gasp, sweat slicking his brow, the phantom grip of loss clutching at his throat. Each dream was a fresh wound, twisting his gut with a fear unlike any he'd known. This wasn't the fear of a battle or a Sith Lord, but the profound, crushing dread of losing the one person who truly anchored him. He confided in no one about the true extent of these visions. The Jedi Code, rigid and unyielding, forbade attachments, and his secret marriage to Padme was the galaxy's most dangerous secret. How could he speak of a love that was forbidden, let alone a fear that stemmed from it? This isolation deepened his torment, making the whispers of Chancellor Palpatine all the more seductive. Palpatine had always seemed to understand him, unlike the sometimes distant Jedi Council. He offered a listening ear, a knowing glance, a seemingly empathetic nod whenever Anakin voiced his frustrations with the Jedi's limitations. And lately, the Chancellor's words had taken on a new, unsettling resonance, playing directly into Anakin's deepest anxieties. "The Force is vast, Anakin," Palpatine would murmur, his voice a low, comforting drone, "and some of its secrets, some of its powers, lie beyond the Jedi's understanding." He spoke of legends, of abilities to influence life and death, hinting at a power that could defy the inevitable, a power that could, perhaps, save a dying loved one. Anakin listened, his heart a raw, open wound. He desperately wanted to believe. He saw Palpatine not as a tempter, but as a potential savior, a beacon of hope in the overwhelming darkness of his fear. The Jedi, for all their wisdom, had no answers for his nightmares, no comfort for his soul-deep terror. Only Palpatine seemed to offer a way, a path, a forbidden knowledge that promised to silence the screams of his sleepy mind and secure Padme's future. The internal conflict raged, a silent, desperate war for his very soul. Today, the whispers of the past weeks coalesced into a terrifying reality. Anakin had been summoned to Palpatine's private office, a place usually filled with the comforting hum of bureaucracy. But as he stepped inside, a different current permeated the ARA cold, insidious energy that prickled his skin. The Chancellor, typically a picture of benevolent statesmanship, stood silhouetted against the panoramic view of Coruscant, bathed in the eerie glow of the cityscape. His back was to Anakin, but the very posture exuded a newfound, unnerving power. When Palpatine finally turned, Anakin felt a jolt. The kindly smile was gone, replaced by a predatory gleam in his eyes, a glint that seemed to peel away layers of deception.
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.
His eyes, a glint that seemed to peel away layers of deception. The voice that had always been so smooth and reassuring now had an unsettling sibilance, like a serpent's hiss. "The Jedi are holding you back, my boy," Palpatine purred, his gaze piercing, as if seeing directly into Anakin's most secret fears. "They cannot offer you the power to save her. They speak of balance, but they fear true power. Only the DarkSide can." Anakin's heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the silence of the room. The words hung in the air, heavy with a temptation that resonated with his deepest anxieties, echoing the nightmares that plagued him. He saw the path laid out before him. Limitless power, the ability to defy death itself. Palpatine gestured, and for a moment, the very force in the room seemed to bend to his will. A dark, seductive hum pulsing against Anakin's soul, promising not just salvation, but mastery. Darth Plagueis the Wise, Palpatine continued, his voice dropping to a near growl, a revelation in itself. He could manipulate the midi-chlorians to create life to prevent death. The Jedi would never teach you such things. They are weak. I, Anakin am Darth Sidious. The name, uttered with chilling satisfaction, settled around them like a shroud. The affable Chancellor was gone, replaced by the ancient, monstrous evil of a Sith Lord, laid bare before Anakin. It was a terrifying, alluring confession, offering the universe on a platter, if only he would succumb to its darkness. Anakin's heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic, desperate rhythm. The words, limitless power, defy death, save her, echoed in his mind, sweet as forbidden fruit. The DarkSide pulsed, a seductive hum against his very soul, promising salvation, promising an end to the terrifying nightmares. For a terrifying moment he swayed on the precipice, the lure of such absolute power almost overwhelming. He could feel it, almost taste it, the raw, untamed energy that could bend reality to his will. But then, a different image, a clearer truth, pierced through the seductive fog. It wasn't the image of a dying Padme, but of a living one. Her kind eyes, full of unwavering belief in him, her gentle smile, the way she would sometimes just lean into his embrace, trusting completely. He remembered her boundless optimism, her unwavering commitment to the Republic, to justice, to peace. Would she truly want him to embrace such a monstrous power, to become something dark and twisted to save her? Then, other faces flashed in his mind. Obi-Wan's patient, often exasperated, but always loving gaze. Yoda's ancient, wise eyes, seeing beyond his bravado to the conflicted soul beneath. He recalled the core tenets of the Jedi Code of Duty: selflessness, protection of the innocent values that, despite his frustrations, had always guided him. He thought of the younglings, the very children in the temple he had sworn to protect, their innocent faces trusting him. Would he truly betray all that for a power born of fear and hate? The darkness recoiled. A sliver of pure, bright light, born of love and duty, broke through the suffocating fear. Palpatine, seeing this momentary hesitation, pressed harder, his face contorting into a sneer that finally, undeniably, confirmed his true, monstrous nature. "Join me, Lord Vader," he hissed, his voice now a venomous rasp, "and together we shall reshape the galaxy." The name, Lord Vader, hit Anakin like a physical blow, colder and sharper than any lightsaber. It solidified the horror of the path Palpatine was offering. This wasn't salvation, it was corruption. This being before him was not a kindly mentor, not a concerned friend, but a parasite, feeding on his deepest fears, twisting his love into a weapon.
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
Feeding on his deepest fears, twisting his love into a weapon of destruction. In that instant, the choice was searingly clear. "You are not my friend," Anakin snarled, his voice low, raw with the sting of betrayal and a sudden, cold fury that ignited deep within him. The truth of Palpatine's manipulation, the sheer audacity of his deceit, burned brighter than any Sith lightning. Before Palpatine could even fully register the defiance in Anakin's eyes, Anakin's right hand moved. The familiar hum and snap of a lightsaber igniting filled the Chancellor's office, casting a brilliant blue glow that illuminated the ancient malevolence now plainly visible on Palpatine's contorted face. Palpatine shrieked, a sound more of outrage than pain, and immediately lashed out. Force lightning, crackling and potent, erupted from his fingertips, aimed directly at Anakin's chest. But Anakin, fueled by a desperate, righteous anger that bypassed all Jedi training on control, moved with a speed born of pure crisis. He brought his lightsaber up, deflecting the bolts with practiced ease. But this was no calm defense. He pushed through the searing energy, the raw power thrumming in his veins, his mind singularly focused. This wasn't about strategic advantage or Jedi tenets. Now it was about stopping a great evil, a cancerous growth in Balai, the heart of the Republic. The duel was swift, brutal, and utterly devoid of the calculated precision Anakin usually employed in combat. It was a desperate struggle, a clash of raw force against raw force, a furious scramble for survival and eradication. Palpatine, caught off guard by Anakin's sudden, uncharacteristic aggression and the sheer, unfiltered fury of his lightsaber strikes, fought back with a viciousness that belied his frail appearance, his eyes burning with infernal hate. Just as Palpatine was about to unleash a devastating, concentrated torrent of lightning, clearly aiming for a killing blow, Anakin, with a guttural roar, plunged his lightsaber straight through the Chancellor's chest. At that very moment, the heavy blast doors to the office burst open with a pneumatic hiss. Mace Windu, his face grim, led Kit Fisto, Agent Kohler, and CCTN into the room. They stood frozen, their own lightsabers ignited, their faces registering a mixture of profound shock and dawning horror. Palpatine gasped, a ragged, dying breath, his eyes wide with a final, hate-filled surprise as the light left them. His body slumped, lifeless, smoke curling from the charred robes around the blue glowing blade protruding from his chest. Anakin stood panting, his lightsaber still ignited, its hum the only sound in the suddenly silent room. He looked up at the bewildered Jedi Masters, his eyes wide, a flicker of something akin to terror mingling with a grim, heavy resolve. He was the Sith Lord, Anakin choked out, his voice hoarse, raw from exertion and emotion. Darth Sidious. He corrupted the Republic from within.
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.
Anakin stood panting, his lightsaber still humming, the blue blade a stark, accusing line pointing at the lifeless form of what was once Chancellor Palpatine. Smoke curled faintly from the robes, a macabre incense. The Jedi Masters Mace Windu, Kit Fisto, Agent Kohler, and CCTN remained frozen in the doorway, their ignited lightsabers held ready, their faces a tableau of shock and confusion. They had come expecting to corner a suspect, perhaps even the DarkSide user, but certainly not to find their supposed ally, the Supreme Chancellor, slain by their chosen one. He was the Sith Lord, Anakin choked out, his voice raw, hoarse from the exertion of the sudden, brutal fight and the deeper emotional strain. His wide eyes flickered between the dead Chancellor and the bewildered Masters. Darth Sidious. All of it. The war. The manipulation. It was him. He corrupted the Republic from within. A collective intake of breath from the Masters was the only sound for a moment. Disbelief warred with a chilling recognition on Mace Windu's stern face. Sidious? Windu's voice was a low growl, skepticism clashing with the undeniable reality before him. Are you certain? Skywalker? Anakin nodded frantically, a tremor running through him. He confessed. He told me of Darth Plagueis, of powers over life and death. He tried to turn me, to call me Lord Vader. The name felt like ash in his mouth, a chilling reminder of the path he had narrowly avoided. He unleashed Force lightning. I had no choice. He was too dangerous to be left alive. Kit Fisto's eyes widened, remembering the insidious feeling he'd always had about the Chancellor, a subtle discord in the force around him that he'd dismissed as merely political cunning. CCTN's usually calm demeanor was shattered, a look of profound horror settling upon him. The sheer audacity of it, the depth of the betrayal, was almost incomprehensible. Their most trusted leader, the very head of their government, had been the hidden puppet master, the ultimate enemy. The pieces of the puzzle, so long obscured by war and political maneuvering, suddenly snapped into place, forming a terrifying picture of galactic-scale deception. The truth, ugly and devastating, had finally been exposed, not by careful investigation, but by a desperate, violent act. The news of Chancellor Palpatine's death, and more profoundly, the revelation of his true identity as Darth Sidious, ripped through Coruscant like a force storm. The initial shock gave way to a maelstrom of fear, confusion, and outrage. The Galactic Senate, for so long a stage manipulated by the unseen hand of a Sith Lord, was plunged into utter chaos. Senators, loyalists, and separatist sympathizers alike reeled from the betrayal, their alliances and political maneuverings crumbling in the face of such a monumental deception. With the architect of the war and the Republic's supposed leader gone, a massive power vacuum yawned open. Who would lead? Who could be trusted? The emergency powers granted to Palpatine evaporated, leaving the Republic's governmental structure.
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.
Evaporated, leaving the Republic's governmental structure in disarray. Whispers of martial law, even civil war among the remaining factions, began to circulate. The very foundation of their democracy seemed to tremble, threatening to collapse under the weight of its own exposed corruption. But amidst the panic, voices of reason began to emerge. Senator Bail Organa of Alderaan, known for his integrity and calm demeanor, was one of the first to step forward. His face, usually composed, now carried a grim determination. He reached out to other respected and uncompromised figures, like Senator Mon Mothma of Chandrila, whose quiet resolve had always been a moral compass in the often turbulent political seas. Together, they began to rally the moderate voices, those who genuinely desired a return to peace and order, rather than exploiting the crisis for personal gain. They worked tirelessly, holding emergency sessions, navigating the treacherous currents of fear and suspicion that now ran rampant through the Senate chambers. Their immediate goal was to prevent total anarchy, to stabilize the government before the Republic fragmented beyond repair. They proposed an interim leadership, a council of respected senators who would temporarily guide the Republic. It was a bold move, and it was met with fierce debate, but the alternative total collapse was far worse. Slowly, painstakingly, they began the arduous process of exposing the vast, intricate network of corruption Palpatine had woven throughout every level of government and military. The task was daunting, but with the Sith Lord finally gone, a fragile hope began to dawn. The hope of rebuilding a republic truly worthy of its name, guided by genuine public servants rather than a hidden tyrant. Anakin Skywalker became an instant, reluctant legend. The whispers of hero with no fear had always followed him, but now they morphed into savior of the Republic. The public, initially bewildered by the shocking death of their chancellor, quickly latched onto the narrative that Anakin, the Chosen One, had single-handedly unmasked and eliminated the hidden Sith Lord. There were parades, accolades, and Senate resolutions praising his decisive action. Yet, beneath the surface of public adoration, Anakin felt a profound, heavy burden. He was haunted, not by Palpatine's physical presence, but by his dying gaze, a look of pure, ancient hatred that had seared itself into Anakin's memory. He was haunted by the raw, almost uncontrolled power he had unleashed in that moment of desperate fury. The Force, usually a wellspring of calm and guidance, had felt like a roaring furnace within him, fueled by fear, anger, and betrayal. He had walked perilously close to the very darkness he had destroyed, and that knowledge chilled him to the bone. The Jedi Council, while publicly acknowledging his heroism and the invaluable service he had rendered, regarded him with immense caution. Mace Windu, his gaze more piercing than ever, observed him closely. Even Yoda, normally serene, would watch Anakin with a subtle, sorrowful intensity, sensing the profound darkness Anakin had wrestled with, the razor-thin line he had walked. They knew he had prevented the ultimate catastrophe, but they also saw the unsettling signs of the immense emotional cost.
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.
"The Force is strong with you, young Skywalker," Obi-Wan Kenobi said gently one evening, finding Anakin meditating, or rather, struggling to meditate, in the temple's quiet gardens. "But it is a double-edged sword, is it not?" Anakin merely grunted, the weight of his thoughts almost crushing. "I felt things, Master," he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "Things I didn't know I was capable of. A rage, a satisfaction, almost, when I struck him down." He looked up, his eyes wide with a flicker of terror. "What if I can't control it next time? What if I become it?" The council decided to assign Obi-Wan to work even more closely with him, not just as a mentor in the traditional sense, but as a constant, stabilizing presence. It was a measure of their deep concern, a quiet acknowledgement of his vulnerability. Anakin, humbled by his near fall and the chilling glimpse of his own dark potential, accepted it without protest. He knew, deep down, that he needed this vigilance, this constant reminder to master himself, before he could truly master the Force. The revelation of Palpatine's true nature and Anakin's desperate act to stop him sent not only shockwaves through the Republic, but also a profound tremor through the very foundations of the Jedi Order. For centuries they had adhered to a strict code, believing detachment from emotions was the only path to the light. Yet, Anakin's near fall, fueled by a powerful, albeit misguided, love and fear, coupled with his ultimate choice to remain in the light, forced a painful introspection. The old ways, the rigid adherence to dogma, were now openly questioned in the quiet halls of the Jedi Temple. Masters debated for hours, their discussions no longer academic exercises, but urgent reckonings with their own blind spots. How had they, the guardians of peace and justice, allowed a Sith Lord to rise to such power right under their noses? Their detachment, it seemed, had led to a dangerous complacency. Grandmaster Yoda, more somber and reflective than ever, became the guiding light of this reformation. He observed Anakin closely, sensing the profound emotional scars, but also the immense strength born from his choice. "Blind we were, Yoda mused during one council meeting, his ears drooping slightly. Fear and attachment.
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.
Drooping slightly. Fear and attachment, paths to the dark side they are. But emotions, suppression of them, is not the way. Understanding, mastering, channeling them for good, that is the true path to balance. He began to teach, not just through ancient texts, but through personal example and deep, empathetic listening. He encouraged younglings and knights alike to acknowledge their feelings, to explore them, and to understand their source, rather than simply pushing them down. Compassion, Yoda now emphasized, was not a weakness, but the greatest strength of a Jedi, a bridge to the living force and to all beings. The Jedi began to change, slowly, painfully, but irrevocably. They became more adaptable, less rigid in their approach to the galaxy's problems. Their focus shifted from political neutrality to active engagement in humanitarian efforts, recognizing that true peace required more than just winning battles. Anakin, still under Obi-Wan's watchful eye, became a living testament to this evolving philosophy. His very existence was a constant reminder that the Force was not just about power, but about the profound choices made in the heart, and that redemption was always possible. The news reached Padme Amidala on Naboo, delivered by a frantic coded transmission from Obi-Wan Kenobi himself. Chancellor Palpatine was dead, slain by Anakin, and revealed to be the true Sith Lord. Relief, swift and profound, washed over her, a wave that almost buckled her knees. But it was quickly followed by a cold dread as Obi-Wan's voice described the raw power Anakin had wielded, the fine line he'd walked. She knew her husband's volatile heart, his immense capacity for both light and shadow. She immediately returned to Coruscant, bypassing old protocol, her only thought to be by Anakin's side. Finding him at the Jedi Temple, he looked drawn, haunted by what he had done, by what he had almost become. His confession, whispered in the quiet privacy of their shared apartment, confirmed her worst fears and deepest hopes. He had nearly fallen, but he had chosen her asterisk, chosen the light, chosen integrity over the tempting darkness. Their secret marriage, once a source of thrilling risk, now became their most sacred sanctuary. The political turmoil and the Jedi Council's wary gaze forced them even closer. In their stolen moments, Padme became his unwavering anchor. She listened without judgment as he spoke of the dying hatred in Palpatine's eyes, the terrifying surge of power, the guilt that gnawed at him. "You made the right choice, my love," she would whisper, holding him tight. "You saved us all. You saved yourself." Her calm strength, her unwavering belief in his goodness, was the balm his tormented soul desperately needed. Beyond supporting Anakin, Padme plunged herself into the chaotic Senate with renewed vigor. The task of rebuilding a fractured government without Palpatine's insidious guidance was monumental. She worked tirelessly alongside Senator Bail Organa and Mon Mothma, her experience and moral compass invaluable in steering the fractured government away from further disunity. Her passion for democracy, once fueled by an ideal, was now hardened by the bitter reality of betrayal. She fought for transparency, for justice, for a true republic, understanding that only through collective effort and genuine service could they heal the galaxy's deep wounds.
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.
Service could they heal the galaxy's deep wounds. Her public service and private devotion became two sides of the same unwavering commitment to a better future. Eventually, the tide of the Clone Wars began to turn. Without Darth Sidious's overarching, insidious strategy, and with Count Dooku having been dealt with earlier in the conflict, the Separatist movement lost its central command and unified purpose. The vast armies of droids, once a terrifying, endless wave, now operated with less coordination. Their grand designs fractured into independent, often conflicting objectives. This disarray allowed the Jedi, now fighting a war without a hidden agenda, to pivot their efforts. The focus shifted from brute force conquest to a combination of targeted military actions and earnest diplomatic efforts. Jedi Masters, including Obi-Wan Kenobi, who found new purpose in this more honest fight, spearheaded negotiations with separatist-aligned systems that were weary of war and disillusioned by their own leadership. Senator Padme Amidala, her voice now ringing with even greater authority in a more transparent Senate, played a crucial role advocating tirelessly for peace treaties and humanitarian aid, laying the groundwork for reconciliation rather than vengeance. Decisive, strategic victories were still fought, often led by Anakin Skywalker, whose tactical brilliance remained unmatched. But now, his efforts were purely for peace, for the protection of the innocent, rather than for the advancement of a hidden agenda. He led campaigns, not to crush, but to liberate, to offer a way out of the conflict. The war ended not with the iron fist of an empire rising from the ashes, but with a series of hard-won truces and negotiated surrenders. The galaxy, though scarred by years of brutal conflict and the profound betrayal of Palpatine, could finally breathe. The Galactic Republic, no longer manipulated by a Sith Lord, began a painstaking process of reconstruction. It emerged not as the oppressive empire envisioned by Sidious, but as a renewed, more transparent entity. Old grievances weren't instantly forgotten, but a genuine effort was made to address them, to build bridges between worlds. Anakin, now a celebrated Jedi Master, walked a path of vigilant self-awareness. His immense power was tempered by the wisdom of his near-fall, a constant reminder of the shadow he had faced and overcome. The Jedi Order, reformed and humbled, stood ready to serve a galaxy that looked forward with a new, fragile hope. A galaxy finally, truly guided by a force now in delicate, but profound, balance.
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.